Need.
Need.
You don't really need a car.
Plants need light in order to survive.
The camcorder needs a new battery. Are you sure that you have everything you need?
I need glasses for reading.
I need you to help me with the cooking. I need you to help me with the cooking. More blood donors are urgently needed.
A much-needed boost to the local economy.
I need a drink. If you need anything, just say.
She needed to go out for a walk.
He needs to see a doctor straight away.
I need to catch up on my office work.
You need to let me know by Monday if you want to take part.
You needn't stay long. Going to the dentist need not necessarily be a painful experience. Going to the dentist need not necessarily be a painful experience. You needn't have spent all that money. You needn't have spent all that money.
I needn't have worried.
Need we leave so soon?
Jim need never find out what I said.
The house needed painting.
Does this shirt need ironing? The engine will need to be completely checked.
The pie doesn't need to be refrigerated.
His hair needs a wash.
The job needs a lot of patience.
Being a teacher needs a high level of motivation.
I need hardly remind you that this information is confidential. We need only look at the building to see how much money it will take to repair. All we need do is threaten them. She's lazy, slow, and stubborn. Need I say more?
There's a customer for you on the phone. Oh, that's all I need.
Makeup? Who needs it?
Kids. Who needs them?
There's a growing need for new housing in many rural areas.
We fully recognize the need to improve communications.
The need for job satisfaction.
Jack did not feel the need to boast about his success. You're welcome to come back and talk any time if ever you feel the need.
She works to provide for her family's basic needs.
Environmentalists argue that the organisation fails to address the needs of third world farmers. The charity exists to meet the needs of elderly people.
Schools must satisfy the needs of their pupils.
We have loans to meet your every need. There's no need for you to come if you don't want to.
There's no need to feel sorry for him.
There's no need to shout.
This project is in urgent need of funding.
He is homeless and in desperate need of help.
The church was in dire need of repair.
She believes him and has no need of further proof.
Cases of severe need in the inner cities.
We must care for those in need.
How could she abandon her father now in his hour of need?
It's not the most comfortable way to travel, but needs must.
Needful. Needful.
Needful expenditure.
Needle.
Needle.
A needle and thread.
A tapestry needle.
She carried hypodermic needles and syringes in her bag.
Drug users are at risk when they share needles.
A compass needle.
Pine needles.
Finding out which file you want can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Finding out which file you want can be like looking for a needle in a haystack.
I just said that to Charlie to needle him. I just said that to Charlie to needle him.
Needlepoint.
Needlepoint.
Needless.
Needless.
Needless to say, any contributions of money will be gratefully received. The report caused needless anxiety to women who have attended the clinic. The report caused needless anxiety to women who have attended the clinic.
We need to bring to an end these needless deaths. We need to bring to an end these needless deaths.
Charles hates needless waste.
People are dying needlessly every year of heart attacks.
Needlewoman.
Needlewoman.
Needlework.
Needlework.
Needn't.
Need to know.
Access to the manufacturing process is on a strictly need-to-know basis.
Needn't.
Needn't.
I needn't have put on this thick coat. Needy.
Needy.
A needy family. Money to help the needy.
Ne'er.
Ne'er.
Ne'er-do-well.
Ne'er-do-well.
Neat. Neat. How can we stop teenagers dropping out of education and becoming neats? Nefarious.
Nefarious.
Nefarious activities such as drug trafficking and fraud.
Negate.
Negate.
Efforts to expand the tourist industry could be negated by reports that the sea is highly polluted. Efforts to expand the tourist industry could be negated by reports that the sea is highly polluted.
Negation.
Negation. Much of what passes for Christianity is a negation of Christ's teachings.
He shook his head in silent negation.
Negative.
Negative.
My drinking was starting to have a negative effect on my work.
The negative aspects of aging.
On the negative side, it will cost a lot.
Students with a negative attitude to school.
They have a uniformly negative image of the police.
Jean rarely sounded so negative about her mother.
He gave a negative answer without any explanation.
The pregnancy test was negative.
A person can be recently infected by HIV and have a negative result.
A negative return on our investment.
Negative numbers.
Black and white photographic negatives.
The majority of people, when asked whether or not they are creative, will reply in the negative. The majority of people, when asked whether or not they are creative, will reply in the negative.
The negatives outweigh the positives on this issue.
The test will give a proportion of false negatives.
Negative equity.
Negative equity.
Negativity.
Negativity.
Neglect.
Neglect.
She smoked and drank, neglected the children, and left the clothes unmended.
A neglected garden.
The building has been badly neglected.
Many of these ideas have been neglected by modern historians. Many of these ideas have been neglected by modern historians.
The police officer was accused of neglecting his duty. You neglected to mention that they had a second album released during 1991. You neglected to mention that they had a second album released during 1991.
Tenants are complaining about the landlord's neglect of the property. Tenants are complaining about the landlord's neglect of the property.
After years of neglect, the roads were full of potholes.
The whole district had had an air of abandonment and neglect.
5 officers were court-martialed for cowardice or neglect of duty.
Neglectful.
Neglectful.
She became more and more neglectful of her responsibilities.
Negligee.
Negligee.
Negligence.
Negligence.
Negligence in carrying out safety procedures.
The bridge's architect was sued for criminal negligence.
Negligent.
Negligent.
The report stated that Dr. Brady had been negligent in not giving the patient a full examination. Mr. Brown was found guilty of negligent driving. Mr. Brown was found guilty of negligent driving.
He gave a negligent shrug.
Negligible.
Negligible.
The damage done to his property was negligible.
Negotiable.
Negotiable.
Part-time barman required. Hours and salary negotiable.
The price is not negotiable.
The road is only negotiable in the dry season.
Negotiate.
Negotiate.
The government refuses to negotiate with terrorists.
Union leaders have negotiated an agreement for a shorter working week.
His first aim is to get the warring parties back to the negotiating table.
Guido swung the steering wheel round to negotiate a corner. Guido swung the steering wheel round to negotiate a corner.
Negotiation.
Negotiation.
The negotiations with the company had reached a crucial stage.
This follows private negotiations between the landowner and the leisure centre.
He is trying to involve community leaders. He is trying to involve community leaders.
Negotiator.
Negotiator.
The chief union negotiator.
Negress.
Negress.
Negro.
Negro.
Negro spiritual.
Negro spiritual.
Nay.
Nay.
Neighbor. Neighbor.
One of the neighbors complained about the noise from the party.
FBI agents were interviewing all their friends and neighbors.
Our next-door neighbors say they'll look after our cat for us while we're away. Israel and its Arab neighbors.
The teacher saw Phil passing a note to his neighbor.
The garden was divided from its neighbor by a high wall.
Neighborhood.
She grew up in a quiet neighborhood of Boston.
The hotel is situated in a peaceful residential neighborhood. A neighborhood school.
Be quiet, you'll wake up the whole neighborhood.
Is there a good Chinese restaurant in the neighborhood?
The painting is worth something in the neighborhood of $3,000.
Neighborhood watch.
Neighborhood watch.
Neighboring. Neighborly. Neighboring.
Neighboring.
The fair attracted hundreds of people from the neighboring towns and villages. Neighborly.
Neighborly.
The importance of good neighborly relations between the two countries.
Neither.
Neither.
Would you like tea or coffee? Neither, thanks.
It was a game in which neither team deserved to win. Neither of them can cook. Thompson had two strategies, neither of which seemed to have worked very well.
We asked both John and Jerry, but neither one could offer a satisfactory explanation.
I don't have any money. Neither do I.
Tom didn't believe a word she said, and neither did the police.
I don't like horror movies. Me neither.
Neither Oleg's mother nor his father spoke English.
The equipment is neither accurate nor safe. The fact that she needed the money for her children is neither here nor there. It's still stealing.
The New York Times is neither one thing nor the other. It's not really a city newspaper, and it's not really a national newspaper either.
The authorities were not sympathetic to the students' demands, neither would they tolerate any disruption. The authorities were not sympathetic to the students' demands, neither would they tolerate any disruption.
Nellie.
Nellie. Nemesis. Nemesis.
In the final, he will meet his old nemesis, Roger Federer.
Neo-Georgian architecture.
Neo-fascists.
Neoclassical. Neoclassical.
A palace built in a neoclassical style.
Neocolonialism. Neocolonialism.
Neoconservative.
Neoconservative.
Neolithic.
Neolithic.
A Neolithic burial ground.
Neologism.
Neologism.
Neon.
Neon.
The neon lights of Las Vegas.
A neon sign flashed on and off above the door. Neonatal.
Neonatal.
Neonatal care. Nurses working in neonatal units.
Neophyte.
Neophyte.
Nephew.
Nephew.
Nepotism.
Nepotism.
Allegations of nepotism and corruption.
Neptune.
Neptune.
The discovery of Neptune in 1846.
Nerd.
Nerd.
A computer nerd.
Nerdy glasses.
Nero.
Nero.
Nerve.
Nerve.
Sean drank a large glass of brandy to calm his nerves.
I remember you were a bundle of nerves on your wedding day.
A lot of people suffer from nerves before they go on stage.
What's wrong with Rachel? It's just nerves. She's got her driving test tomorrow.
A condition which affects the nerves in the back.
Not many people have the nerve to stand up and speak in front of a large audience.
She finally found the nerve to tell him she wanted a divorce.
It takes a lot of nerve to report a colleague for sexual harassment.
Jensen would have won if he hadn't lost his nerve.
It's hard to keep your nerve when people keep interrupting you.
She's always moaning. It really gets on my nerves.
He's got a nerve asking for more money.
She didn't say sorry or anything. What a nerve!
She lets me do all the work, and then she has the nerve to criticize my cooking.
Without realizing, he had touched a raw nerve. The job requires nerves of steel.
The parachutist nerved himself for the jump.
Nerve cell.
Nerve cell.
Nerve center.
Nerve center.
The ship's nerve center.
Nerve gas.
Nerve gas.
Nerveless.
Nerveless.
The key fell from her suddenly nerveless fingers.
Nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking.
Speaking in public can be a nerve-wracking experience.
Fran faced a nerve-wracking wait for her test results.
Nervous.
Nervous.
She was so nervous about her exams that she couldn't sleep.
I wish you'd stop looking at me like that. You're making me nervous.
Paul always gets nervous whenever he has to give a presentation.
Don't be silly, she said with a nervous laugh. There's no such thing as ghosts.
By the time I got into the interview, I was a nervous wreck.
We were all a bit nervous of him at first.
She's a nervous, sensitive child. The film is unsuitable for people of a nervous disposition.
She was suffering from a nervous condition.
He had a nervous twitch. She smiled nervously.
Mike's nervousness showed in his voice.
Nervous breakdown.
Nervous breakdown.
Colin came close to having a nervous breakdown last year.
Nervous system.
Nervous system.
Nervy.
Nervy.
She was all tired and nervy.
Ness.
Loudness.
Sadness.
Nest.
Nest.
A bird's nest.
In May, the females build a nest and lay their eggs.
Young eagles leave the nest after only 2 months.
A field mouse's nest.
Both daughters were ready to fly the nest.
They say eagles used to nest in those rocks.
Phrases are nested in the dictionary entry for the first major word. Phrases are nested in the dictionary entry for the first major word. Nest egg.
Nest egg.
They had to use part of their retirement nest egg to pay for their son's college fees.
Nestle.
Nestle.
Sarah lay there peacefully, the child nestling by her side.
He nestled his head against her shoulder. A tiny village nestling among the foothills of the French Alps. A tiny village nestling among the foothills of the French Alps.
Nestling.
Nestling.
Net.
Net.
Bruce spends most evenings surfing the net.
You might find something on the net.
A fishing net.
A butterfly net.
Henry kicked the ball into the back of the net.
A mosquito net.
Net curtains.
In a class of 30 children, it is easy for some to slip through the net and learn nothing. Record companies are casting their nets wide in search of new talent. In a class of 30 children, it is easy for some to slip through the net and learn nothing. Record companies are casting their nets wide in search of new talent.
The net profit was up 16.3% last month.
The company reported a net loss of $56 million last year.
The United States is a net importer of beef.
The net result will be higher costs to the consumer.
He earns $40,000 net.
Jars of coffee weighing 450 grams net. I was netting around $64,000 a year.
The company has recently netted several large contracts.
An undercover sweep netted 22 suspects in one evening.
Rooney has netted 9 goals for United so far this season.
We netted 3 fish in under an hour. We netted 3 fish in under an hour.
Netbook. Netbook.
Netball.
Netball.
Nether. Nether.
Exploring the nether regions of East Sussex.
Netiquette.
Netiquette.
Netizen.
Netizen. China and India will soon have far larger numbers of netizens than any Western nation.
Netpreneur.
Netpreneur.
Netspeak.
Netspeak.
A glossary of Netspeak terms.
Net. Net.
Netting.
Netting.
Offensive wire netting.
Nettle. Nettle.
She was nettled by Holman's remark.
Nettle rash.
Nettle rash.
Network.
Network.
Hungary's telephone network.
A high-speed European rail network.
An elaborate network of canals.
The network of blood vessels in the body.
The 4 biggest TV networks.
You're listening to the American Armed Forces Network.
It's important to build up a network of professional contacts.
Network adapter. Network adapter.
Networking.
Networking.
I'm hoping to do some networking at the conference next week in London.
Neural.
Neural.
Signs of neural activity.
Neural computer.
Neural computer.
Neuralgia. Neuralgia.
Neural network.
Neural network.
By 1989, they were using neural networks to assess credit risks.
Neuro.
A neurosurgeon.
Neuroinformatics.
Neuroinformatics.
Neurology.
Neurology.
A neurological disease.
Neuron.
Neuron.
Neuroscience.
Neuroscience.
Neurosis.
Neurosis.
Neurotheology. Neurotheology.
Neurotic.
Neurotic.
He seemed a neurotic, self-obsessed man.
Neurotic disorders.
She accused him of being a neurotic.
Neurotypical.
Neurotypical.
Neuter.
Neuter.
A neutered tomcat.
Plans to reform local government are designed to neuter local democracy.
Neutral.
Neutral.
I always tried to remain neutral when they started arguing.
Clive decided to adopt a neutral position. Clive decided to adopt a neutral position. Clive decided to adopt a neutral position.
The British government acted as a neutral observer during the talks.
During World War II, Sweden was neutral.
The talks will be held on neutral ground.
The neutral language of an official news report.
Bragg said in a neutral voice, "The investigation has been closed down."
Neutral tones give the room a feeling of space.
The plant prefers a neutral or slightly acidic soil. The plant prefers a neutral or slightly acidic soil.
A neutral pH of 7.0.
When you start the engine, make sure the car's in neutral. Put the car into neutral.
Neutrality.
Neutrality.
Neutralize.
Neutralize.
Rising prices neutralize increased wages. A medicine that neutralizes the acid in the stomach.
Neutrino.
Neutrino.
Neutron.
Neutron.
Neutron bomb.
Neutron bomb.
Never.
Never.
He's never been to Australia.
I'm never going back there again, not as long as I live.
It is never too late to give up smoking. Never had she been so confused.
I'll never ever forgive him for leaving me.
Never again would he return to Naples.
Never in all my life have I felt so humiliated.
She had never for one moment imagined that it could happen to her.
Max had never been known to leave home without telling anyone.
Try it. You never know, you might be lucky.
I never knew you played the guitar.
I do everything for him, and he's never so much as made me a cup of coffee.
Someone might discover our secret, and that would never do.
They're getting married next month. Never.
He's never going to cycle all the way to Manchester.
Well, I never. I wouldn't have thought she was that old.
You cheated, didn't you? No, I never.
She'll be back, never fear.